Hey there, it's Pete with GCI Turf. Hope you're having a great day today. And today I'm going to show you how to calibrate the GCI Turfware spray boom. I recently in another video announced that I'm an official dealer for Turfware now, so we can offer and sell machines to anybody that's interested in one, and that includes like the drop-in spray tank, the dual hopper kit, the spray boom, the bigger pump if that's something you need. And I mean, I'm blown away by all this. I'm telling you, I'm absolutely stoked to be able to be a part of such an incredible brand of ride-on spreader sprayers. In my book, they just don't get no better. The one thing I felt it was lacking was a spray boom. The machines come with two boomless spray nozzles, T-Jet boomless spray nozzles, but I'm a spray boom guy. Okay, I like the accuracy and the detail of a spray boom more so than the boomless nozzle. Yes, the boomless nozzles, they do great, okay, but this is kind of a personal preference thing. I prefer a spray boom over the boomless nozzle if I have that option. And in this case, we made the option available, so it's here for anyone that wants the spray boom for a Turfware. If you currently own a Turfware, I'll link it up in the description below. I kind of worked it out with Turfware to make it an exclusive for GCI, because I kind of took the idea to them and kind of helped them along the way and went back and forth with ideas and that kind of thing, and this is what we landed on. So I've got them on the Academy website now, and again, I'm pumped about it. This thing is game-changing stuff, because a spray boom, in my opinion, allows you to do a lot of different things, because you can change out nozzles to do different type applications. You may need a fine mist for one application, you may need a heavy droplet for another one, you may need an air induction for a different type of application. So there's so many different things you can do with a spray boom versus boomless. If you are in that boat and you want the spray boom, it all depends on the pump. Your pump is located right here behind the hopper. If you got the smaller pump, you're going to have to choose or select the upgraded version that comes with the bigger pump. If you already have the bigger pump, you don't need it. All you need is the spray boom. If you buy the spray boom, we supply two sets of tips. One is a dual fan spray tip, and that's actually what's on it today. We're going to calibrate it with that. And then the second set of tips is air induction. Just a straight up fan tip air induction nozzle, so you'll kind of have the best of both worlds. And obviously you can find spray tips all over the internet, and you can play around with it and have so many different combinations and options with a spray boom, whereas you wouldn't have that with the boomless nozzles. So sprayer calibration, why do we need to calibrate a sprayer? And before I get into that, I want to tell you that what I'm about to show you applies to any sprayer on the planet. It doesn't matter if the sprayer is boomless, it doesn't matter if it has a spray boom, it doesn't matter if you're using a backpack sprayer with a fan tip. The calibration process is all the same for any of them. So basically, sprayer calibration is we're going to tell the machine, based on its capabilities, obviously, and that is determined by the nozzle size, the pump size, how much liquid can be pushed out of the nozzle. Some machines have limits based on the pump size and the nozzle size. Generally speaking, though, sprayer calibration is telling the machine how much liquid to put on an area. Now, I don't personally have a problem with this, but I kind of do have a problem with it, because it's inaccurate. As far as I'm concerned, is you'll have folks that will say you want to calibrate gallon per minute. Okay, you want to put down so much in a minute. Well, that's not the way professional lawn care applicators calibrate. golf course superintendents and things like that. Now, that's the ones that I know. I'm sure it might be a few out there that does it that way. But the reason I'm so dead set on this is very simple. When you take a jug of herbicide, insecticide, fungicide, a jug of liquid fertilizer, micros, humic, kelp, fulvic, whatever, and you take the jug from the manufacturer, you read on the label. I've done that hundreds of times with hundreds of different products. I have yet to see a label say apply 3 to 6 ounces per minute, apply 6 to 12 ounces per minute, apply half gallon per minute. It's just not there. I've yet to see that. And if there is a label out there that states that, I would love for someone to email it to me, because I just want to see it with my eyes. Okay, so that's why I'm so dead set on the verbiage I use. The language I use is we calibrate per 1,000 square feet, because on those jugs of chemicals and insecticides and fertilizers, it will tell you a certain rate, and it'll give you a range. It might be from 3 to 6 ounces per 1,000, or it may be 1 gallon to 3 gallons per acre. Those are areas, okay? It's not based on minute, it's based on an area of ground. So there's just a few things that you need to be able to calibrate, okay? And these things need to be consistent, okay? That's the overarching theme of what I'm saying, is the consistency is what creates consistent calibration, okay? Your speed that you're traveling across the ground, whether you be walking, whether you be on a machine, whether you be flying in the air, dusting crops, or the speed has to be consistent. Meaning, once you get the thing calibrated, every time you use it after that, you want to run the same speed as when you calibrated it. Because if you ride slower, you're going to put out more product. If you travel faster, you're going to put out less product. Okay, think about it. It's just common sense. The pump's back here on the back side, the pressure regulator's right up here under the dash, and if I've got a consistent speed, but my pressure fluctuates, that's going to allow different amounts of material, different amounts of liquid to come out of the spray boom. Depending on the orifice size, if you pump the pressure up, you may create a finer mist and may actually be putting out less material. If you have larger orifice size and you crank the pressure up, you're going to put out more material. So you need to set a pressure along with the nozzles you select, and that needs to remain consistent. So the next thing is the height of the nozzles or the spray tips off the ground. Okay, you can see the boomless nozzles down here. They're set. You can adjust them up and down, so that's going to stay consistent. The boom is mounted to the frame. That can't change. The height is going to be consistent, which we created a thing where it's 20 inches high off the ground and the nozzles are 20 inches apart. And the way the width of the nozzles being apart comes into play is if you had 20 inches between here, 30 inches between here, 15 inches between here, that's inconsistent. Okay, they're 20 inches apart all the way, which is going to create a nice even spray pattern on the ground. And that leads to the last thing that needs to be consistent is your width. Your spray width is going to be determined by how high the nozzles are off the ground. Obviously, if you move them closer to the ground, depending on the degree nozzle you get, that can actually make the pattern tighten up a little bit and you not have the correct overlap. Obviously, if you raise the boom up off the ground, you're going to really be spraying out a lot wider, and then you get into all kind of issues about drift and all that kind of thing. So this is pretty much the ideal setup, the nozzles being 20 inches off the ground and 20 inches apart. Speed of the machine, and that is going to be determined by the operator, by how they squeeze the hydraulics and how fast it goes. Engine RPM has to do a lot with that as well, because if you crank the RPMs up a little bit and you pull the handle a little bit, you're going to go a little bit faster, right? So all that needs to be consistent. So your speed of the machine, needs to be consistent. The pressure coming out of your pump needs to be consistent. The height of the nozzles off the ground needs to be consistent. And the width you're spraying at needs to be consistent. All right, so we're going to get into the actual calibration. All I need is a measuring cup to do that. And again, this applies to any machine on the face of the planet that's a sprayer. It applies to backpack sprayers, so DIY guys. You know, I've got a spray equipment page on the website dedicated to you that's got battery powered backpack sprayers. So that was kind of me getting you to grasp the concept of consistency, because if you're pumping, obviously your pressure is going to fluctuate a little bit. So the battery powered backpack sprayers kind of eliminates that one factor and makes the overall experience, you know, more consistent. So there's a link in the description for DIY folks that want to check those out, or pro guys if you're interested in a battery powered backpack sprayer. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fire the machine up and I'm going to get it up to operating speed. I'm not going to move it. I'm going to get my pressure set. I'm going to actually, with these tips right here, I can actually crank the pressure all the way up, which is about 30 psi. And then once I do that, I'm going to turn the boom on. I'm going to let it paint the ground here, and I'm going to take a tape measure and physically measure how wide this boom is spraying. So I'm at 12 foot wide. Now that doesn't include a little bit of splatter on each end. I'm gonna use that for my little bit of overlap when I'm actually in the yard spraying. So we're gonna call it 12 foot. And all you need to do now is do a little math. What number times 12 will equal 1,000 or get you really close to 1,000, and that's 83. It comes up to 996. So 12 times 83 is 996. That's close enough to 1,000 for me. Now what we're going to do is go out here in the road, measure 83 feet, and mark each end. All right, so my mailbox right here is going to be the starting point, and I'm going to use this blue box as my stopping point. All right there's 83 feet. So before we go out and just take off tearing the road up and going as fast as we possibly can, we need to find a good speed, okay? And what I mean by that is, I don't care if you have the best nozzles on the planet, if you have the best pump on the planet. If your speed is too fast, you're going to destroy your coverage, okay? Meaning, as far as the spray pattern coverage is concerned, coverage meaning the material you actually put on the ground, you want to be a nice even coverage, and you don't want it speckled. So obviously if I go out here at full throttle, engage the hydraulics fully, I'm probably going to speckle the ground, and I'm not going to get real good coverage, meaning I'll have little pockets here and there that I'm not actually getting material on. And of course that's fine in certain circumstances depending on the product, but for calibrating purposes I want good full even coverage all the way across the spray pattern. So that doesn't mean I'm going to go out here wide open. I'm going to set my engine speed full throttle on the 460. If this is a 460 XL, you want to throttle it up to about 3,000 RPMs. And then I'm going to show you a little trick I use with the handlebars on how I gauge my speed. Okay, so when I'm on the machine and I'm actually spraying, and of course your sprayer is right here, and don't get it confused with the hopper agitator. Sprayer left, agitator right. When I'm spraying, I'm going to have my hands here comfortably. I'm going to take these outside 3 fingers and I'm going to pull it. You can see how I've left my pointer finger as a gauge. That way I can't squeeze the thing all the way. This particular machine doesn't have a way to set the speed where it only goes a certain speed unless you come down here to the linkage and you adjust it the way that you want it, so that when you pull the lever all the way back and engage the hydraulics fully, then it'll only go a certain speed. But I haven't went through the trouble of doing that. The reason is when I'm spraying, I can use my finger as a stop. Well, when I'm traveling between the front yard and the backyard, or if I'm going to load on the truck and I need my full available speed to me, at that point, then I can squeeze them all the way. I personally don't like to be limited to my speed because I like to get with it. Okay, you know what I mean? When I'm done spraying the yard and I'm going back to the truck, I like to go in full throttle and get back so I can go to my next yard. But while I'm spraying, I can use that finger right there as a gauge or as a stop, and that's the way I maintain a consistent speed. So I'm gonna use this area right here to kind of test my speed, using my fingers as a stop, and I'm gonna actually spray when I'm coming down through here, and I'm going to look at my pattern and visually inspect it to make sure I've got a good even coverage. Now I've got to hurry up and show you this before it dries. The sun's out, but you can see that is really good consistent coverage. You can see how it just kind of painted that asphalt black. And then I actually did some over here in the driveway as well, so you could pick it up a little bit better. And come right here and you see that's the spray line, and these are the speckles I was telling you about. See where I get out here, this little bit of speckling? Well, if you drive too fast, if you operate the machine too fast, you're going to get that across the entire spray pattern, which is a no-go. That's no good. Okay, I'm using this little bit for some overlap. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to use that speed. Now we're going to go out here and do the actual calibration using that speed, and I'll use that speed the entire time. Now my mailbox, which is my starting point, is right up under the camera. The blue box is down that way on the edge of the yard. When I'm going to start back away from the mailbox, get up to operating speed. Once I get to the mailbox, I'm going to hit the stopwatch on my phone because I need to time how long it takes me to get from my mailbox down 83 feet to the blue box. All right, so I'm timing myself the entire way. When I get down here to this blue box, I'm going to stop my stopwatch. 15 seconds. Now I'm going to reset my stopwatch, and I'm going to do it again just to double check myself. Okay, so now that we know it takes 15 seconds to travel 1,000 square feet, which that's covering a lot of ground. I mean, 15 seconds per 1,000 is pretty good. We need to now know how much liquid total comes out of all these nozzles in that 15 seconds. Now, if you're using a backpack sprayer and you're calibrating a backpack sprayer, obviously you're going to follow the same procedure, but you're only going to have one nozzle that you need to collect the water from. And that's another good point. Always calibrate with water, okay? You don't want chemicals and herbicides and stuff, because you can see you're going to be down here around it and stuff like that. So use water to calibrate. If I were calibrating the boomless nozzles, I would go through the same procedure. Take a measurement, time it, figure out what 1,000 square foot looks like with this, and then come back and I would collect water for the amount of seconds that it took to travel that length to get my 1,000 square feet. So in this case, 15 seconds is what it takes to cover 1,000 square feet. So I'm going to fire the machine up, I'm going to turn the sprayer on, and I'm going to collect the material, collect the liquid out of each individual nozzle. Okay, yeah, you could potentially collect it out of one, multiply that times 5, get your number. I'm a little more anal than that. I like to collect it out of each individual nozzle so that we get an accurate and true calibration. The chances of it being off a lot is slim to none, but I'm the guy who just likes to do things correctly, so that's the way I'm wired. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to time it with my stopwatch. 15 seconds, 15 seconds, 15 seconds, 15, and 15, and then we'll take the total. Then we'll know how much liquid is actually going on the ground per 1,000 square feet. Now, when I get to 64, I only have a 64 ounce measuring cup. So when I get to 64, I'm going to stop my timer and empty and throw that out in the yard, and then pick right back up where I left off, and we'll add that up and see what our total is. So you can see I threw out the first 64 ounces and kind of picked back up where I was at. And I'm right at 56 ounces. So that's about 8 ounces shy of 1 gallon. So what are my options now? I'm shooting for 1 gallon per 1,000, okay? If I wanted to do 2 gallons per 1,000, I would have to really slow my speed down. But I'm even a little short for my 1 gallon per 1,000 that I'm shooting for. So I don't have many options because I've maxed out my pump. Okay, my pump is doing everything it can possibly do, maxed out, meaning I've got the engine RPM full throttle, and then my pressure regulator, I've got it as high as it'll go. So the pump is maxed out. Okay, so I can't go any higher with my pump. Obviously, we're not going to change anything with the width and height. So the only option I have, if I want to gain this other 8 ounces, is I need to slow down a little bit, right? And 8 ounces over the course of 1,000 square feet is going to be slowing down just a pinch. I mean, instead of me squeezing the handlebars and me actually feeling the stainless steel bar come in contact with the bone in my finger, it may be more like coming in contact with just the skin of my finger. In between the skin, I've got a little layer of tissue and meat in there that's over top of my bone, so that little teeny tiny bit of difference is probably going to make up that 8 ounces over the course of 1,000 square feet. So I'm good with that. I'm completely fine with that. I'll just make a mental note. Instead of squeezing it, like I said earlier, to the point to where I can feel it against my bone, I'll just squeeze it to where it's barely touching my skin. That will make up that 8 ounce difference, and I'm good with calling this a gallon per 1,000. If you want to change that, if I wanted to go to a half gallon per 1,000, I'm not going to travel faster, okay? Not with these nozzles, because these nozzles, the dual fan tip, they're designed to give you about a gallon per 1,000 on either of the turf wares if you're using the boom. And remember, the pump, if you got the small pump on your turf ware, you have to upgrade to the 7 gallon per minute pump, because the smaller pump will not feed the spray boom unless you're using nozzles with little teeny tiny orifice sizes, and that's just not going to be sufficient for spraying turf. So if I wanted to calibrate this thing at a 1/2 gallon per 1,000 using the existing setup, the only thing I would change is I'd get some different nozzles. That's it. I could still run the dual fan tips, but instead of me running an 0.8 on the orifice size, I could, drop down to a 0.4 or 0.5 or something like that, and my speed would probably be about the same and all, but again, you want to go through the calibration process and check that. I could also run straight fan tips. Like I said, if you buy the boom, it comes with the dual fans and a set of air induction fan tips. So I haven't personally calibrated it with the fan tips yet, but I'm sure the volume that comes out of those is going to be a little less than the fan tip, the dual fan tips I have on here now. So that would probably get you down closer to a 1/2 gallon. This is the TR460 25 gallon tank. So if I'm calibrated at 1 gallon per 1,000, that means I can cover 25,000 square feet with one fill up. If I decide I want to change the tips and calibrate the thing at a 1/2 gallon per 1,000, that means I could cover 50,000 square feet with a fill up. Let's talk about mixing a little bit. So I'm calibrated at 1 gallon per 1,000, and let's just say, for example's sake, that I have two products. We'll call it product A and product B. Product A requires 10 ounces per 1,000. Product B requires 10 ounces per 1,000. So I've got 128 ounces of water, and that 1 gallon is going to go over 1,000 square feet, but I also need to get product A and product B on the same 1,000 square feet with the water. So do I take the gallon of water and add product A 10 ounces and product B 10 ounces? No, because that's going to put you at 148 ounces of water, and then you're over the gallon per 1,000 is your calibration rate. What we're going to do is we're going to subtract 20 ounces of water, okay? Remember, product A is 10 ounces per 1,000, product B is 10 ounces per 1,000. 128 ounces in a gallon of water, so product A is going to drop that down to 118 ounces of water. Product B is going to drop down to 108 ounces of water. So in order for me to properly apply product A and B to 1,000 square feet, I'm going to have 108 ounces of water. I'm going to have 10 ounces of product A, 10 ounces of product B. That equals 128 ounces, which is the same thing as a gallon. That's how you calibrate the GCI Turfware spray boom. And again, you can use this procedure or this process with any spray equipment on the planet. It doesn't matter. Obviously, they make special things like my Toro Multi-Pro is a 20-foot boom sprayer, and all of it's computerized, so I don't actually have to physically calibrate it unless I want to check the computer to make sure it's all accurate. But in general speaking, for the most part, most of your ride-on spreader sprayers, backpacks, skid sprayers, walking spray booms, boomless walking nozzles, and the boomless nozzles that go on back of four-wheelers with a tank, and UTVs and things like that. This applies to all of those. So I'll link up the Turfwares, the 460 and the 460 XL, and the spray boom product page in the description below. For you DIY folks, there'll be a link in the description for the battery powered backpack sprayers and my nozzle setups and that kind of thing. And man, I hope you learned something. I mean, this is where I excel. This is where I thrive in my business, is the nuts and bolts and the nerdiness behind sprayer calibration, pumps, water flow, pressure, all that kind of thing. I just absolutely eat it alive. I love it. Don't know why. It's just my thing. That's what I like to do. That's just a part of my lawn care company that I absolutely love, is the equipment side of spraying. So hey, as always, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch. I'll check you later.